Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even if it's shitty. We're talking about the weaponizing of South African history. Garfield, what do you have to say? Do you like it when people weaponize our history? You don't like it? No. Okay, yeah, I made him shake his head. Okay. So, yeah, for the last little while, it has just felt like South Africa is fighting a battle on multiple fronts, okay? And it's kind of irritating. I am not going to lie. It's very, very irritating, and I don't like it, okay? So I have spoken about this extensively on my channel. You know, in my video, Give Black South Africans Some Peace, I spoke about how the xenophobia myth is pretty much the same. It follows the same narrative as the white genocide myth, okay? So let's just have a look at what I was trying to say.
So please explain to me, you who don't live with Black South Africans, how these two narratives are consistent.
She was contesting in Miss South Africa, where South Africans feel like she couldn't represent them because she's African and black, literally.
It's racist. I'm not a racist, but the blacks comes first and then the whites. And even highly qualified whites don't even get a position in South Africa.
Oh no, you fucked up by coming to this video.
So I don't know, man. It's just unfortunate that people in the comment section just get so heated, so emotionally charged that they stop thinking for themselves and understand that...
You fucked up by coming to this video because you're going to listen to it again. I want to understand how South Africa can be a demon on both sides. Let's look.
So please explain to me, you who don't live with Black South Africans, how these two narratives are consistent.
She was contesting in Miss South Africa, where South Africans feel like she couldn't represent them because she's African and black, literally.
It's racist. I'm not a racist, but the blacks comes first and then the whites.
So how's that possible? I'll tell you how that's possible with the psychological abuse many people put South Africa through. That is known as DARVO, an acronym for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Anytime Black South Africans want to build something, they've always got to have people put mud on their face. They've always got to have people demonizing them, okay? How can they be anti-black and anti-white at the same time? Xenophobic and committing a white genocide at the same time. On the one hand, you go into all these comments and you see how people call them, from other parts of Africa, call them slaves. They only care about their precious white people. On the other hand, they're literally being accused of murder when they achieved the greatest accomplishment in human history. And that is what I think you guys are jealous of. You are jealous of the fact that a 30-year-old baby country, I think we're turning 31, we turned 31 this April, right? Baby country has achieved more than a country like Nigeria has in decades that they had independence before us, and many people across the African diaspora. You are jealous, America, that South Africa has achieved more in 30 years than you have in over 100. You are jealous, Britain, that South Africa has achieved more for unity than you have. But we have the right to the dignity of our process. We have the right to our laws. We have the right to rectify the wrongs. And a lot of that means helping and prioritizing our poor South Africans, the majority of whom are black, okay, given the history of our nation. I'm not going to say it. This guy, Velshie's going to say it. He's going to say it in Americanese, and maybe you'll listen to him. If you have your Afrophobic ears, maybe you'll actually listen to one of your own. Okay, but before we get to it, because it is brilliant, it is superb. I couldn't have said it better by myself. Actually, I could have said it just as well. But again, there's this dismissal of South Africans of all colors. And yes, we exist in all colors. Just because we don't fit your narrative, your definition, it doesn't mean we're wrong. Your definition is off. This is our reality, the Rainbow Nation. Okay, so Zelda over here says, we are not refugees or in a genocide. Not all white Afrikaners are racist. I have emphasized that multiple times on my channel. I have never called myself a boer. Not that I think personally that there's anything wrong with the word. Okay, it means farmer. I fight for the democracy of my country every day. We all do. We all do. Which is why we want to make sure everybody's documented. Everybody does what they're supposed to do. Why won't you give your fingerprints to the police? Okay? She says, I'm a proud white South African. And I'm tired of you guys that say that doesn't exist. It exists, and we're happy with that, okay? Yes, one of the languages I speak is Afrikaans. By the way, stop victimizing the Afrikaans language. There's nothing worse than the bullying of the English language, which has erased multiple languages around the world, coming to a baby language that only turned 100 years ago the other day, and that is spoken by 3% of the world in South Africa and Namibia, okay? I am not proud of the history of the country, but we can and must never forget it. I was raised by parents who told me every day, no matter what your skin color, everyone's blood is red. Okay? Sorry, I need to find it. Not proud of the history of the country. Everyone's blood is red. My parents have been deceased for 10 years, and I was 12 when democracy became a reality in SA. I will never forget the lessons my parents told me. Even before those first democratic elections, their friends from all walks of life sat around the table and shared meals and conversations with us, explaining different cultures, enriching our lives. That's true. Even before we had the transition, people of different races in this country wanted to be together. Years later, I became a doctor, not through grants or favor, but with loans and the help of my parents. I miss them. I miss their advice. They make me a better person because they refuse to hate and let fear dictate their life. I can say that for millions of South Africans of all races. Yes, white included. And here's the thing. I know that she's an Afrikaner based on how she's spelling more in Afrikaans, right? And this person says, I'm a white South African. Thank you for the truth. There's no genocide in South Africa. So this person says, whoever says Trump isn't racist must be high on something. This person says, oh my gosh, I'm in tears hearing this. Thank you so much. I'm a 5th generation South African Indian. And whilst I'm the first to say our country has its problems, we have fought hard for this democracy. We are a proud nation. It is sad to say that President Trump has taken the stance, but I believe in the America that speaks truth to power. Yes, there are many Americans like that. That it will never let a schoolboy bully stoop to this level of malice. History will judge him. I just pray that it doesn't judge all Americans by one man's actions. Proud of this Indian South African over there doing what we all as South Africans do, is we take accountability and we never shy away from our racist history. We always do that. I want to talk a bit later about how she talks about how she believes in the Americans that speak truth to power. I do believe in it, but I do have one thing I want to say to you. Please stay to the end for that. And let me actually go back and line up that video so that I don't forget. There is one thing that all Americans, good or bad, need to learn if you're going to be dealing with the world and if you're going to be dealing with South Africa in particular, okay? But it's American protagonist energy. And I'm sorry, you guys have grown up in a world where every movie you watch, the protagonist is American, and a lot of you have internalized that, okay? And someone needs to say it, and I'm going to say it kindly, but please listen. This person says, I am a colored South African and appreciate the segment giving a truthful account of our reality. There is no genocide, and working towards a better country for us all is hard work. It is not easy to undo what it took many decades to do. You know, guys, this whole thing about Davo, deny, attack, and reverse victim, it's very similar to when Bongi Mbonambi was accused of saying something racist just because he spoke Afrikaans and the person wouldn't listen to the translation. Very similar to those people who wanted colored people in South Africa to erase themselves, and the black people stood firm behind us, and the whole of Africa, actually all 54 countries, stood firmly behind us. By the way, I want to thank you guys across Africa and even in America and even in Australia and New Zealand that spread bad news about our country, because all you've done is expose the truth. Okay, there are many people in Africa that are starting to see through the lie of the xenophobia myth, and there are many people in Australia and New Zealand. Many of them, except for some of the poorest racists who have been spending their last $2 to $5 to feed fat scammers, white scammers in South Africa, because that's what this is. It is a big scam that has been feeding on racists from other countries, but many of them live poor, because South Africa, say, like it or not, was built as a Disneyland for white people. It really was, okay? Many of us have political access to that now. We can go into any of those spaces politically, but there is an economic barrier, and that is what we're trying to address. Guys, you sit in the audience, you listen to us when it comes to South Africa, because you are new to the conversation of South Africa. You might just have heard about South Africa 5 minutes ago. Some of you guys will go, South Africa, which country? Okay. Some of you may have heard news interviews that fit your bias. Okay. Here's the thing, guys. We've been South Africans our whole lives, and we're the only ones who know what's best for this country, okay? So you listen to us on this. This person says, Afrikaner here, perfectly right, perfectly said, Nkosi sikelele Africa, which means God bless Africa. That is in Xhosa. As a white Afrikaner, I thank you for this fantastic summary of true facts. Ali, your South African Afrikaner history was a concise and well presented depiction of their history. I'm an English-speaking South African who was to school in the US from the age of 10 till 14. My father was sent to the US to promote tourism in South Africa. The recent South African rugby teams demonstrate how things could be. They have won the last 4 world championships. Their team is mixed race with the first black captain in the world. In one of the early championship winning games, a burly Afrikaans player kissed the black try scorer on the head. I'm a police sergeant in South Africa. There's absolutely no genocide in our country. Thank you for the truth, sir. Thank you, Velshi, for the most clear, fair, and accurate portrayal of South Africa's history. There will always be some of us on both sides that will spew hatred and division. But for the majority of South Africans, we are trying hard to fix the past. We are not perfect and make mistakes. But I think my fellow South Africans will agree with me that the ugly history must always be known so that we can understand and acknowledge it and repair. Americans need to fight to keep their ugly history alive and not hide it like they are trying to do in the red states. They will end in repeating past mistakes and the hard-fought rights of disadvantaged people being trampled on yet again. As South Africans, we understand this. The Germans understand their ugly history. Ironically, it is the Germans and the South Africans that of all peoples can see the dark path that America is on. That's because they have lived and seen it up close. Guys, I have to agree with that. South Africa and Germany, who have been taught and educated never to repeat their past, are crying to America. And we're telling you, Americans, please wake up. And there are many of you that want to. But guys, as your loving friend, I'm going to tell you there's one egotistic thing that you all need to put aside. I'm going to give you an example of how that works. This video is coming up soon on my channel, okay? So on the one hand, it's what I call American protagonist energy. It's the idea that you are here to be the saviors of the world. That will be your downfall even as a well-meaning American. Please watch this video and listen nicely.
I'm in the process of sponsoring a family that is fleeing South Africa due to the white genocide. I am not going to let a white group of people suffer and not help them because I've been bullied into not giving a shit. That ain't me. Wrong dude.
Reverse victim. He's pretending he's being bullied into not giving a shit. He was told, you don't know better. And so this is years ago, and he took some Afrikaners to America, some of those racist ones. Let's listen, because they know how to play. And they're playing, you guys. These are players. Okay? You guys are like that girl, you know, that goes, my boyfriend wouldn't do that. And you listen to how the ex-girlfriend's trying to tell you now. She's trying to tell you, okay? Sorry, I actually don't know how big my face is because I'm watching the video. Let me make sure that you guys can actually see. You can. Okay, cool. Okay, let's carry on.
Dude, don't care. These people want to be Americans. They don't want to be South Africans anymore because that country was given over the minute that fucking cocksucking communist Mandela was let out of prison. They're going to live in my house, and I'm going to fucking feed him and take care of them.
How did that work out for him in 2020? How did that work out for him? And Nelson Mandela's ancestors must be dancing at this. Not that it would make Nelson Mandela happy to know that this happened to someone, but please listen, guys, okay? Learn something about American protagonist energy, because people from all around the world are saying it about American tourists even, okay? All of you guys need to hear this. Tough pill to swallow, but someone's got to tell you. Let's see how it worked out for Mikey Mike over here. Mike, let us know.
Suffice to say that I got involved in the abuse of the minority white race in South Africa a couple of years ago. Got heavily involved. Ultimately ended up sponsoring a family of 4 and helped facilitate them from Africa. Obviously, it turned out bad. They did play me, and they admit. In fact, that was one of the things they said was they're bragging about how they played me like a sport game.
Listen carefully. Listen carefully to what he is saying. Okay? I'm sorry, I know my sound production is not great, but listen.
About how they played me like, one of the things they said was they're bragging about how they played me like a sport game.
There are people playing the whole of America like a sport game, and they're going to brag about it. You know, if it weren't so shocking, I'd actually find it amusing. But unfortunately, I would find it amusing that South Africans of any race are running America, except for the fact that I have sat on the New York subway next to veterans, and that's not funny. I've been to an Alabama diner, and I have seen the poverty in America, and that's not funny. I've been in American winter and seen the American homeless people in a winter that I was never raised to handle. And that is not funny. Pennsylvania. No, was it Maryland? Was it New York? That cold that gets into your bones where you have nowhere to be inside, that's not funny. And your money, your tax dollars are now going to some of the richest, most privileged people in the world, actually. The most pampered. This is what's going to happen.
Basically, it turned out bad. They did play me, and they admit. In fact, that was one of the things they said was they're bragging about how they played me like a sport game. I spent over $30,000 in that 11 months in money.
$30,000 in 11 months in money. No less than that. No less than that is what he's talking about. I want you to hear exactly how they played him. You will be laughed at. And I'm warning you. I'm warning you. Please do not allow this on American soil.
And fed and clothed them. So I might be stupid enough to have fallen for that because I thought with my heart instead of my head. You know what? They cost me a lot of money when they were here. Suck and parasite and use people. And then when they're done, they just fucking, go on to the next fucking victim. When they talk to me.
Because they are parasites. I know you guys want to believe that you're the biggest victims of racism, all of you in America. You have never seen this level of milking. They have generationally milked, and they believe they have a right to that. You are inviting in narcissists. They would betray their own country.
It's like, hey, we're a good family. We own a business, and we're hardworking people. And when we get to America, the way we'll pay the rent we'll work for you guys. All right. If anything, we had to work 10 times as hard just to fucking take care of these people. I mean, in 11 months, I got my.
They're accustomed to people working 10 times as hard just to keep them sustained.
Grass cut 3 times. One time ended up being in a huge argument. Everything fucking free. Lay around, watch TV, and watch fucking movies for 11 months and fucking change.
Because they're not accustomed to American work ethic. Guys, I stand here as not just the wife of an American. I sit here before you as someone who's had 2 American visas and had 2 American visas denied. Okay, no matter what anybody says, your immigration processes are brilliant. Okay, they're absolutely brilliant. Whenever they're telling you about the border, blah, 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 they can handle it. They're just telling you that stuff. Okay, they are excellent. And I could take one of these minority visas. Did you know that? Because to pretend that it's not racist, they're now saying that all minorities in South Africa, that is colored, Indian, and white, are eligible for this so long as we can speak of persecution. I will do no such thing. I say that as someone whose father, white father, was held at gunpoint because of crime, not genocide, whose brown mother and 2-year-old nephew and 4-year-old nephew and brown brother were held at gunpoint 2 years before that. I was 17 when it happened to mommy's house, and I was 19 and there when it happened at daddy's shop. Okay, and I heard the gunshots, and they held a gun to my 2-year-old nephew Nicholas's head. I actually want to show you a picture of Nicholas. Give me a second. 17 years old when they held a gun to his head just because he was crying, okay? That's crime. That's crime. Okay? So I am going to go, when I do go to America, for my visa through the proper channels, because I believe that there are enough good Americans here and abroad to give me a fair chance when I do that. For now, we're staying in South Africa, and that is what it is. Okay, we have our reasons and whatever. But no, I'm not going to sit and make up a story about persecution. There's a crime crisis, and there always has been. Yeah, there always has been. So we're going to go to Valshi's video. I think it's about time for that. Okay? But stop weaponizing South Africa's history, no matter where you come from, no matter what the color of your skin, just because you want to take advantage of it. Stop it with the Darvo. Here we go.
Part of you may have heard that white South Africans, particularly Afrikaners, are being discriminated against and are leaving South Africa as refugees, that they're being pushed out, marginalized, and hunted. It's a narrative that's gaining traction in some quarters of the American political discourse, pushed by voices like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, even by Musk's AI that's built into his social media platform, Grok. Though they've worked to make some changes to what
Musk AI is saying this because South African law says he needs to have at least 30% of his workforce being black. Now, in a country where 80% of the people are black, how is that an unreasonable request? I find it rather generous.
Brock will tell you about this story. It does deserve some unpacking because this problematic narrative about a complex situation in South Africa is being used to actually say something about America. Now, to understand the story well, we have to go back, way back. 373 years.
Sorry, I would say the same about America. I'd say the same about Israel. I'd say the same about Nigeria. The mud you have thrown in our faces is not about us. It's about you. It's about you. Sweep around your own front door before you sweep around ours.
Situation in South Africa is being used to actually say something about America. Now, to understand the story well, we have to go back, way back. 373 years back.
So they take a complicated narrative.
1650.
They take a complicated narrative and they muddy the waters because they're taking advantage of your ignorance. Don't let them win.
373 years back to April 6th, 1652. 3 ships from the Dutch East India Company, the Dromedaris, the Reiger, and the Good Hope, land on the shores of what will become Cape Town. That was the start of a 300-year project of white settler colonialism, which would eventually lead to a tiny white minority ruling over a massive black majority in and across southern Africa. 1652 was the beginning of one of the most brutally sophisticated systems of racial oppression that the modern world has ever known, a system that would in 1948 become entrenched into law as apartheid.
The same 1948 in which what happened in Palestine started, the same 1948 in which, ironically, the UN said we're never going to allow shit like this to happen again.
Afrikaners, descendants of those French and Dutch settlers, called themselves Boers. The word Boer means farmer, and it's where the term the Boer War comes from. The Boers built their identity around independence, strict Calvinist values, and later the institution of white supremacy. They cited the Bible as justification for suppressing non-white people.
More than the Bible, they have a prophet. I've spoken about him, and you must go and research him in order to grasp this more thoroughly. His name is Nicholas van Rensburg. Go and look at my channel. You will see stuff about the white people's prophet. They believe that this land belongs to them in the same way that Israelis believe that Palestine belongs to them, but somewhat more laughably.
The word apartheid itself didn't officially enter politics until the national elections of 1948 in South Africa, the one that took South Africa from being just a racist British colony into an independent and thoroughly racist republic. But long before that, British colonists and Boer settlers were already competing over which one of them could treat the black population worse. As I wrote in my book, Small Acts...
Not just the black population. Economically and violently, they treated the black population worse. But you know that even amongst white spaces, Portuguese, Greek, Italians were treated as second-class citizen white people that have all the economic stuff that everybody else had, but there was a deep psychological abuse. Deep. And he's going to talk about Indians and colored soon.
Of courage. They weren't trying to build a better society. They were trying to outdo each other in oppression. There was this belief among Afrikaner nationalists that in a truly democratic South Africa, one in which non-white people could vote, white people would lose everything. And they
even have a name for it. It was called the Night of the Long Knives. And there's nothing that pisses them off more than that didn't happen. That we came together. Anybody who's pissed off about black people in South Africa not retaliating, no matter where you come from, I see you as the same as this. I see you as a white supremacist, no matter what your skin color is. Anybody who wants us to be angry or whatever, and who doesn't want us to build and work together, you're the same, buddy. You're the same in my book.
They didn't just target black South Africans, whom they referred to with the derogatory term Kafirs. Indians, like my ancestors who arrived in South Africa in 1893, were called coolies, also a derogatory term. Colored people, the name for people of mixed race, were segregated, they were monitored, they were dehumanized.
Their children were taken away. They had just been set free from slavery, because that 1652 he's talking about, that would mark the beginning of slavery about 2 or 3 years later. And that's why we're colored, because we're the most genetically mixed race people in the world, because we came from all over. Did you guys know that as a colored South African, I am more likely to be related genetically to a West African than anyone else? I'm more likely to be related to a African American than you are to be related to a black South African. I am a closer relative of black South Africans, West Africans, and African Americans, most likely, than you are to each other, as well as people from Asia, people from Malaysia, etc., etc. We're closer relatives. You can understand the difference between a German and a Greek, then you can understand that. But you guys like patronizing us.
During that election in 1948, the National Party's campaign slogan read, it was an Afrikaans term, Die Kaffer op sy plek, die coolies uit die land, which translates to the black man in his place, the Asians out of the country.
Sorry, it means worse than black man. It means savage. It means the savage in his place, and it means the other word for Indians, out of the land. Uitlanders. That's where these white supremacists get their name, Suidlanders. Go and research it. I've sent you information on my channel. It's not romantic, but it is what it is.
This was literally racism codified, defended, and exported.
And refined, more refined than that of any other country in history. You're not ready for it. And I'm not saying that to get to your ego. I am trying to say that so that you can get ready.
But then came 1994, a miracle. A revolution without a war. Nelson Mandela elected. White South Africans, including Afrikaners, held a referendum leading up to those elections in which they essentially voted themselves out of power.
This was not just a miracle, guys. It was more than that. It was the greatest achievement in humankind, and I was there. You have never had a wedding. You've never given birth to a child. You've never had a happier moment than we had giving birth to the South Africa we have now. You don't know joy to its fullest degree because you weren't there in that moment.
But then came 1994, a miracle, a revolution without a war. Nelson Mandela elected. White South Africans, including Afrikaners, held a referendum leading up to those elections in which they essentially voted themselves out of power. It was
because even those benefiting from racism know how evil that spirit can be. Even those living in a Disneyland you could not imagine. 70% of them were willing to give that up for the greater future that we have, which is the future we are living and building right now. The most beautiful thing that human beings can accomplish, and that is the work that South Africans are doing. What, do you think I'm biased? You think I'm biased? You pronounce correct wrong.
Remains a remarkable act of democratic humility. The Afrikaners knew the game was up, and the future lay in a true multiracial democracy.
They knew the game was up, they ate their humble pie, and with dignity and respect, they walked away. The first chance they got. The first chance they got to vote out of that. The general population, I mean. I'm not talking about the Nats and the government. They wouldn't have wanted to. But even they worked together. Because our love for South Africa is greater than our hatred for each other.
Knew the game was up, and the future lay in a true multiracial democracy. Today, the South African government uses affirmative action and black economic empowerment to redress 3 centuries of economic and educational exclusion, their version of what one might call DEI. And yes, some white South Africans, Afrikaners included, say that this feels a lot like reverse discrimination. They point to quotas in public schools, shifting university admissions, government contracts going to black-owned firms. And just like in America, there are extremely poor white communities in South Africa, a situation that was only worsened.
They are. And we went the other day to a place that has a number of, it includes a number of poor white South Africans, and they're getting along and they're chilling with everyone. Am I wrong, baby? What's that? The poor whites that we saw the other day, like, they're just chilling. Is that not out of Rusty Hook? No, out of Greymont. Oh, yeah. No, they're chilling. Chill there. They're chilling together. They haven't... You got to talk into the mic, baby. Those poor whites that are here at Greymont.
Okay, that neighborhood in Graymont, between the poor whites and, like, the coloreds and the black people just kind of, like, all chilling together. Ain't nobody bitching or moaning at each other. It actually made me feel right at home being from Florida, you know? I mean, because that's just a normal thing for me, you know? Like, I don't get why everybody is trying to be all like, everybody's being discriminated against. It's not happening. The only discrimination that's happening right now is the discrimination that they're manufacturing in their heads. And there is discrimination in America against Hispanics right now. Because if you ask me, that's what this whole Afrikaner refugee thing is about. Is Trump trying to get rid of brown faces so he can replace them with white faces.
Since the end of apartheid, with whites losing their special standing in society. Afrikaans, once the dominant language.
Sorry, we've got to play that part again. They perceive losing their special standing in society as oppression. And you guys are going to learn in America real quick, fast, and in a hurry what that's like. But they're also going to learn that you don't take crap. I do believe that.
With whites losing their special standing in society. Afrikaans,
They
once
believe-
the dominant language, while still one of...
They believe that their special standing is a right. And if they're not being treated as special, then they are being oppressed. Those kinds of white people, not the awesome, cool white people that we live with every single day. Okay? Okay, doesn't want to play, so I'll say what the other thing I was thinking. And the awesome, amazing black people we live with every single day are not and do not deserve to be called the names they're being called right now. Whether that's xenophobic, whether that's genocidal. No. The only thing anybody here kills you with is kindness. Which, the fact... Yuck, they only kill you with kindness and good food. And the fact that we've been voted the friendliest country in the world should prove that.
worsened since the end of apartheid, with whites losing their special standing in society. Afrikaans, once the dominant language, while still one of 11 national languages, isn't the primary language anymore. And farm attacks, heinous crimes, have happened. White farmers have been murdered in acts that can only be described as terrorism. In 2024, between October and December, 12 people were killed in attacks on farms. But the idea that these are part of a targeted genocide against...
Also, there are black farmers that have been killed. There are black farmers. And on white-owned farms or white-owned anything in this country, the majority of workers are black. So they get killed too. There's no killing of a white farmer without... Anything in South Africa, for every 2 white people, there's 8 black people. There's no attacking of a group of people in South Africa, like, without the majority of that attack being on black people. That's how it goes. Okay?
Against white people? That claim has no basis in fact. This is where the story... But the idea that these are part of a targeted genocide against white people? That claim has no basis in fact. This is where the story stops being about South Africa and starts being about America. In 2018, President Donald Trump tweeted that he would ask the State Department to investigate the, quote, large-scale killing of white farmers in South Africa. No data, no context, just the echo of a white nationalist talking point. Elon Musk, born in South Africa, has echoed similar sentiments, painting Afrikaners as victims of a hostile black majority government.
Elon Musk hasn't been to South Africa in decades. You know who's in South Africa? Elon Musk's daddy. Why is he here? Why will he never leave? What do you think?
Just this week, Elon Musk shared at least 20 posts on X about South Africa and what he calls anti-white laws. But ask yourself, is this really about concern for Afrikaners? Or are Afrikaners being used, deployed, as symbols in a broader American narrative that says white people everywhere are under attack? It's a way to justify grievance politics here at home, to stoke fear, to say, look, this is what happens when minorities take over. Afrikaners, descendants of colonizers, are being recast as victims of multiculturalism, pluralism, and true democracy. Say
it again,
being used, deployed, as symbols in a broader American narrative that says white people everywhere are under attack. It's a way to justify grievance politics here at home, to stoke fear, to say, look, this is what happens when minorities take over. Afrikaners, descendants of colonizers, are being recast as victims of multiculturalism, pluralism, and true democracy, as messy and complicated as democracy can be.
Can I add this? A lot of you go, white South African, even if such a thing exists. Let me tell you something. That doesn't make you righteous as well. But you guys, white South Africans are African enough when you guys are weaponizing them, nah? White South Africans are African enough when you guys are using that term to muddy South Africa's name. So when they do good, also say that. Because you guys use that to justify when a black person in South Africa is being fair to a white South African, such as Mia LaRue, and giving her a fair chance because she didn't commit crime. Then you guys want to call black South Africans slaves. So you use and you weaponize that against black South Africans. You weaponize their sense of fairness against them. You weaponize their integrity against them, because nothing in your non-South African mind can grasp that maybe they can do something better than you. Maybe South Africans are people you could learn from. It's time to acknowledge you can learn something from everyone. And yes, we have a fuck ton to teach you. Maybe if the rest of you, and that's America, that's Nigeria, that's Israel, that's Britain, that's many of you around the world, sometimes should close your mouth and open your ears. That's a saying we have in Zulu. We're not pretending to be the best at everything, but at this, that's our thing. Try and play racism with us. You're swimming with the big boys now.
The story of the plight of the Afrikaner is being distorted to scare white Americans into thinking that they too are being replaced, pushed aside, and erased. So the question remains, are Afrikaners being discriminated against? Some feel they are, and they may be right. But South Africa today is not apartheid in reverse. It is the hard, necessary, often ugly work of repair, of justice, of democracy trying very hard to make right what was very, very, very wrong for more than 300 years.
And so just to reiterate, what's going to happen if you buy into this white genocide myth? You're going to be played.
Like a sport game, I spent over $30,000 in that 11 months in money and fed and clothed them. So I might be stupid enough to have fallen for that because I thought with my heart instead of my head. You know what? They cost me a lot of money when they were here, suck and parasite and use people, and then when they're done, they just fucking, go on to the next fucking victim. When they talk to me, it's like, hey, we're a good family, we own a business, and we're hardworking people, and, when we get to it.
You're going to get played. And another thing, I've played it before. Maybe I don't need to. Okay? Another thing, we deserve to be judged by our general population, which I showed at the beginning of this video, not by the extremists like those who sing those songs. Okay? Not like those who sing those songs. Okay? We are well aware and we've heard that kind of rhetoric, but that doesn't mean that that's every single South African or that we stand by that at all. Okay?
En die mense praat van 'n revolusie. Toe gaan die ligte uit waar ek staan en pie. Hoor my sokkies en my Nike's en my toilet seat. En ek wip my gat en ek stuur 'n tweet. Ai babalas, ingene babalas. Dis donker.
What I'm trying to communicate here, that guy on the right there is Leon Schuster, our most famous comedian in this country, and he's about to make fun of those extremists. We know that it's happening. Listen. So he knows what those people say. He is a boer, and he's saying you're saying do that to the Boer. Well, put my electric fence on and the Boer is going to stand back. As I've said before, we all live behind electric fences. It's a sign of privilege here in South Africa. People of all races. It's a sign of economic privilege. I've got electric fences around my house. Okay, but do you think that in a country of genocide he'd be able to mock him back?
Maar die rooies verf stemme vir al EFO en gee vir rooi kappie 'n rooi overall.
Okay, so those people that sing those songs, okay, they do exist, all right? They do exist. We're not happy about it, which is why when you saw in the White House those two people together, President Cyril Ramaphosa and the what do you call it? And the agricultural minister from the DA. That was a lot like Republicans and Democrats working together to fight the KKK. That's what it was like. Okay, so the EFF is a breakaway party. The Umkhonto weSizwe is a breakaway party. Okay, they are. All right, and you can go and check it out here. It used to be here on this video, on this thingy. This is our Independent Electoral Commission. Oh gosh, no, I've got to sign in with my ID number. Okay, not going to do that in front of you because you don't need to know my ID number. But that's what's happening with those songs that are being sung. We deserve to not be judged by our extremists, like our minister said earlier. Okay, we deserve to be judged by the everyday South African, which is me, which is the people that I read to you about before. Is how we deserve to be judged. All right? That is not all of us, and that's not fair. But you know what? We stood our ground.
We don't judge the USA by the Ku Klux Klan or by the police who kill black people in the streets. We judge it by the mainstream of society, not the extremes of society.
Ibrahim Rasool, South Africa's ambassador to the US between 2010 and 2014, returned to the job in January 2025, but was expelled just months later after a row with President Trump's administration. He spoke about President Ramaphosa's visit to the Oval Office this week and Trump's widely discredited claims of a white genocide in South Africa.
On the face of it, it looked ugly, but what I can say is that South Africa presented a united front, which was dignified and diverse throughout. I get the impression we advanced our interests on trade and investment. We stood firm on our values, particularly our case against Israel in the International Court of Justice for genocide. And I think that we stood dignified in the face of provocation or fallout on the issues of white genocide.
None of you can handle the diplomacy the way we handled. None of you have the social skills. Okay, that's the one thing you saw in Rupert there, that you saw with the DA minister there, that you saw with Ramaphosa, is that all of these people love South Africa very much and that they can handle a very difficult personality with grace. And I am so proud. I am so proud. They were just these little moments. And so to those of you who want a South Africa that's going to fall apart or want to project your own things that you can't sort out in your own country on us and try and bring hatred to our country or call us haters who want to Davo us, I'm afraid to say that's not going to happen because we have the last word on how South Africa is going to be run, okay? We nearly tore it apart. We admit that, okay? But we're not going to let paradise shut down. I will leave you with the song. It was a song of hope in the 80s when they saw that apartheid was coming to an end. Please listen very carefully to the lyrics. Okay, and just I hope that you hear the hope in the voice of these South Africans. They hoped for the life that I'm living now, and I'm very proud to say that they've handed over the baton. And we as young South Africans, we stand firm in our commitment. We know the blood that was spilt for us. We know who went to prison for us. We know the psychological torture of those who believe that racism is wrong. And we are determined to be their dream. Paradise Road, that's our country. It's a paradise that we have been given the responsibility to protect, and we take that responsibility very seriously, and our elders have educated us correctly. Take a page out of their book for the benefit of your own nation. You have a lot to learn. I'm having a groot lekker kry, and I'm really in the mood now from that song for anti-apartheid songs. There's nothing more beautiful to my ears than anti-apartheid music. Okay, so this was a song from the dawn of our democracy. If it makes you jealous, you should be. We have a fantastic country with its problems. A lot of things that I want to fix, and I want to speak to you one day about the identity theft that happened towards me. But to my beautiful ears, this is the most beautiful sound. Anti-apartheid music. This is African dream. This is our dream. The narrative of who South Africans are belongs to South Africans and South Africans alone.
Sometimes alone in the evening, I look outside my window at the shadows in the night. I hear the sound of distant crying, the darkness multiplying, and weary hearts deny. But I is just a dream, another false illusion, a shadow in the night. All I want is for our hearts to be beating just as one, to silence the confusion. Then the pain and the illusion will disappear again, and we will never run. 'Cause in my African dream, there's a new tomorrow. My African dream is a dream that we can follow, and my hope's an illusion. My African dream is an end to the confusion.
And we will never run, no matter how tough stuff is. I've wanted to run sometimes, but we will never run. So to those coming to our country, we are here to build a nation. All of you are welcome from any corner of the world, any corner of Africa, any corner of Asia. You are welcome here so long as your intention is to build our nation, because that's our mission. Your intention better be to build and to heal and to bring people together and to stop divisiveness, because those are our values. Okay? As for America, I'm really sorry for what you've done for yourself, but you've taken the trash out, and we'd like to thank you for taking them off our hands. Guys, I'm starting to make merchandise saying I support the Great for Tech. I'm still figuring out my designs and stuff. Information will soon be on my channel. If you'd like to support, do me a favor and buy it. No matter where you come from in the world, you don't get to tell us how we define ourselves. You don't get to tell us how we run our nation. You do not have the last word. The last word on South Africa is South Africans alone. And we stand united. And we're going to stand in honesty. And we're here to build. You're here to watch. Okay? This has been Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even if it's shitty. And as usual, mind your business and let South Africans mind their South African business.